everybody. My name is Tony Marcolini. Welcome to the podcast. It may interest you to know. Everybody knows that I love the authors. They're my favorite people to interview in the world in terms of the creative process. So I have another best-selling author with me, Tori Eldridge. Welcome, Tori.
Oh, mahalo for inviting me. This is really exciting.
I read your book. Uh,
Ooh,
and I say this a lot. It's not a giant secret, right? I'm really into literary fiction. Mysteries, I'd say, is my second love. But I love it when I get a combination, right? And that's what this is. This is truly a combination because this is every bit as much about her messy, dysfunctional family as it is, the mystery. Uh, so I never give away spoilers, but just to give a little taste of it, this is really about a national park ranger. She's from Hawaii originally. She relocates to Oregon, where she was working. She comes home for her grandma's like 85th birthday, I want to say it was. And two of her cousins go missing. And so begins the mystery, right, of the book. So begins the process of her helping, using her investigative tools. But from that, she, of course, interacts with her family and there's a lot of unresolved angst, I'll put it that way, that I think coming home and getting that opportunity, plays into to see her family. And maybe with a little bit more perspective that comes with age and experiencing they, what they ultimately kind of go through, um, gives her a perspective at the end that she didn't have at the beginning, right? About how families can be messy, but they're still your family.
indeed. I love that you are so into the family and comparing it to literary fiction because in my mind, it is always multi-generational family drama first and also, wilderness adventure mystery. But it's that family and that drama that drives it through.
I agree, right? I love, I love a good mystery like anybody else. I mean, it's always a great read, but my first love is literary fiction. My first, and it's no secret here, right? I love to read about people's lives, the messier the better, because they so mirror what reality looks like, right? Relationships are hard, family dynamics play into everything. The police who go out and solve crimes, lawyers who try cases, right? They're dealing with other dynamics while they're doing that, while they're being in that career. And oftentimes, even in the mystery, I love a more layered down mystery where even the murder is somehow tied to a just a series of dynamics between everybody. So I enjoy that when I see that in an author that they take time to do that too, right? Because I'm more interested in a complete story than I am just following along to peel back the mystery. There's a place for that, but there's nothing as dynamic as combining the two.
I feel the same way as a reader. Those are the books that draw me in too. If it's just straight up mystery, straight up thriller, sometimes, I kind of lose interest. But if it sets me in a new place, in a new culture with a new dynamic and layers of relationships and people, I'm all in.
Yeah. And you're from Hawaii. I mean,
I
I'd have to assume
am.
no one could have captured it as quite as authentically that wasn't, I don't believe.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I'm Hawaiian, Chinese, and Norwegian. My mother was from Maui. My dad was from North Dakota. And my heritage comes back from the Big Island through Molokai and Maui and now Oahu. But yeah, you're right on that. People had always said, "Oh, you're writing all these other books. Why aren't you writing something in Hawaii?" And I'm like, I'm not quite ready yet. Not quite ready yet. It took me 5 published books to feel ready. Because if I a Kanaka Maoli was going to write a story, it couldn't just be, in my mind, a cool mystery or thriller set in paradise. It had to be, entrenched in my culture and my people and all of that. And that was a big weight, on me. I really felt I needed to get that right.
Well, I thought you did justice to it, right? Because I definitely ended the novel feeling like I knew a lot more than I did going into it in terms of your culture. And that says something, right? I wasn't terribly familiar. I mean, honestly, in the beginning, I felt like a fish out of water, right? It takes a little bit into the novel before I mean, you've got to stick with it, before you're like, oh, okay. Right. But then you really start to feel more immersed in a different culture. And that's just like visiting a totally different place, right? I mean, that's what it ultimately comes down to. So that I thought was quite lovely.
Oh, I'm really happy to hear that. Yeah, I it was important to me to weave in the native Hawaiian language, Olelo Hawaii, because that is so important to all of us. And also, I didn't feel that I could write characters authentically if I didn't incorporate a certain amount of Pidgin English. And
Right.
I tried to make that contextual and as easy to read and flowing as possible. And my whole intention was to bring the readers in and
Sure.
say, e como mai, come be with us, not put you out there by defining everything, just bringing you in and saying, yeah, come on in, be here.
Oh, no different than if you visited, right? No
Yeah,
different than
right?
if I had taken a plane and visited and met you and your family and just stumbled into this thing going on, right? I'd still be trying to, uh, get my sea legs, right? I'd still be trying to
Right.
figure out like something that was different than what I'm used to.
Hmm.
So, but I liked that, right? I mean, it really was like a visit to another place.
Oh,
So I
good.
think it's got that other layer to it that people will enjoy. Um, it's an intellectual read. I mean, it honestly is. I mean, it's something where you feel like you're visiting another place. I thought the mystery was well done. And just like I said, the family dynamics. It's true of every family everywhere, right? There's just a lot of mess. There's not too many families that are just, we live this picture perfect, white picket fence existence.
Yeah.
I think dysfunction is probably more the norm than not.
I agree. And, everybody has, whether they're living under the same roof or not, a multi-generational family. And that's complicated. And, there's a lot going on with that. And I also think that all readers can relate to coming home.
Sure.
That was a big theme. What is it like? Even if you still lived in your own hometown, you're still coming home. But most people, when they move away and then they come back, things look a little bit different. It's
Yeah.
hard to fit in again.
Perspective too, right? I
Mm.
mean, I think your perspective changes when you step away. Uh,
Oh,
and then you return, everything looks and feels a little bit different. And sometimes I think you
yeah.
gain an appreciation for something that used to be annoying, right?
Yeah, I found that myself. I left the islands when I graduated from high school. So it's been a while since I lived there. Of course I go back and visit, but, visiting and living, it's a little bit different. And so to some degree, Makalani, even though she is a bit younger than me, she's going through that same adjustment. And there's always that pull. Every Kanaka Maoli I know who's moved away from the islands, feels that pull, maybe to return, whether they do or not.
Well, I mean, she's a strong character,
Hmm.
right? Makaloni, Makalani.
Makalani. Hmm.
I knew I
I
was going to
know.
say that. But she's a strong character. I mean, she definitively this is the good guy in the book, right? I mean, this is the gal who she just really wants to help. She really wants to do the right thing.
Yeah, yeah, she steps up, sometimes to a fault. She steps up.
Yeah. Right, because she really wants to do the right thing. That's part of who she is. And I think even in coming home, like there was just this enormous, the same pull that dragged her away, right? It was clear to me that she had left to be her own person, right? To find something different, and then like came back saying, I don't know, like I'm back again, and it feels it sort of feels right to be here too. So that same thing with like what's the Reese Witherspoon Alabama movie? Sweet Home
Oh, Sweet
Alabama,
Home
right?
Alabama. Yeah, of
Like they
course.
both feel
Yeah.
right, right?
Yeah.
Like she's like, I built a great life in New York, and but then I come back here and this feels right too, right? So
Yeah.
I thought there was a little bit of that there.
And the longer you stay, and the more
Yeah.
in step you get with your community and the family, the more right it feels.
And she actually uses that phrase. She says, I know what it's like to feel disconnected. She says at one point to your family, and it was, I have to feel that way. But, that's, I mean, really kind of crystallized, even just using that word disconnected, crystallized, where she was coming from,
Hmm.
with her thought process, even though it's towards the end of the book. But I mean, she says, I know what it's like to feel disconnected.
Hmm.
Um, and I thought, yeah, I mean, she went away to make her own life, to be her own person, maybe see something different. And she's back and she's protective and trying to do the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes the way she goes about it is a little bit mainland-esque. And so some of her relatives and the locals, there's a little bit of pushback there, as she tries to, fit in around that culture as well.
Sure. And I understand you're a black belt, right? A fifth degree black belt.
I know, crazy, right? Yeah,
That's pretty impressive. I
I
was just
got a little
wondering,
obsessive with the martial arts.
and I'm wondering to myself how much of that mentality, that protector mentality, that strength, um, made its way into your character.
Yeah, interesting question. I think a lot. There's a lot of me in all of my books, and even though Makalani is this 6 foot tall, powerfully built ranger woman, and I am not. I still feel a lot of the same things, that strong pull for family and that protectiveness of family. That's something that I've come to later in my life, unlike Makalani, who always felt it very young. So there's that. We also share the same kind of work ethic and drive. Her auntie says at one point, the islands breathed a sigh of relief when she left. And and I think the same could be said for me. I had a wee bit too much energy for Hawaiian time and island life, so I took off and went to New York to perform on Broadway. And when I
Yeah, I
hit,
was reading that. That's
I
that's an I mean,
yeah, yeah, and I got there when I was
an amazing
19.
opportunity.
I got there when I was 19. I wrote a letter. That's been back when we actually wrote letters. I
Right?
wrote letters to my dance teacher back in Honolulu, and I said, I finally found a city that has my energy. And she reminded me of that, a couple of years back. But yeah, that's how I felt. Although I have to say, I couldn't live there now. So I think Makalani going to Colorado for school and ranger training and then ending up a ranger in Oregon, it was kind of the same thing, right? She was looking for a bigger place, a bigger stage with more energy and, more to do and more, effects that she could cause and benefits that she could help. She wanted that bigger stage, and then I think as she got a little bit older, it was like, oh, but home.
Yeah.
So
The
you
pull.
know, the pull back to her grandmother's homestead because that's what she grew up on, a very traditional Hawaiian family homestead.
So what's the creative process like for you? I mean, do you write with an outline? Do you just sit down at the computer? I mean, I tell the story all the time, but Matthew Dix, a very successful writer, tells a great story about, writing a book, and his wife calls him and he says, I gotta go. The character's about to, climb up the stairs, and she says, does he live or die? And he goes, I don't know.
I
I gotta
don't
go
know.
back. Right? I got to go back and find out. Like, because he said, the characters just told him the story as he was writing it. He couldn't even think about a direction outside of fingers on the keyboard. But I've heard people say, you know what? God bless him. I need a giant outline in front of me.
I think I'm somewhere in between. I've had chapters like that, or where I don't quite, I know where, things are going in the act, but I don't know what the next chapter is or where this chapter could actually go. I'm kind of leaving that open. But generally, my creative process starts with a place. I knew I wanted to be in Hawaii. And usually some kind of a topic, in this case, I knew, or an objective. In this case, I knew I wanted to really write about what was happening with Native Hawaiians in Hawaii today.
Mm.
So my creative process begins with research. Before I
Ah.
have a title, before I have a plot, sometimes even before I have characters. Frequently, my characters will come out of research. So I picked up the phone to, an activist friend of mine who I graduated from Hawaii, and I said, all right, tell me, what's going on? What's important? What matters? And that's when she started telling me about, the Hawaiian homelands issues that Hawaiians were sharing that ended up becoming the major thrust of this book in regards to the drama that's happening with the family. And so I was like, whoa, okay. So then from that big interview, and she said other things too, then I have to do more research because I need to find more about that, right? Even though I'm from Hawaii, right? I need to research, find more about that, learn more about what's going on Kauai. I never lived there, but it was always my favorite island. And so from there, I went, oh, I know, okay. Then Makalani grows up on a homestead, and it's going to be along the Anahola River because that's very close to where one of the Hawaiian homelands, a major hub and, a lot of properties and everything, that, is right there. And I'm like, that's where she's got to be. That's how this has to be. And so from there came her whole family. That was the next thing. Once I knew Makalani Pahukula, and I don't know where that name came from because I've never heard it. I didn't look it up. It just came to me, and I couldn't stop saying it. I just love the sound. I knew it was going to be rough on readers, but I didn't care. Makalani Pahukula, that was her. I'm like, all right, woman, that's you. So then I made, a genealogy, a full genealogy from her grandmother's parent, all the many children, all the aunties, the uncles, all this down to Makalani, and even down to some of her cousins who are a couple generations younger than her. And I made this whole thing, and I had to track everybody's ethnicity. How much Hawaiian, how much Chinese, how much Japanese, who married who. You should have seen me with my calculator trying to figure out percentages, what is 1/8? What is 1/32? What is the percentage of that? I put that all in my spreadsheet. All of that was so important to me because the percentage of Hawaiian is crucial to getting a Hawaiian homeland's 99-year dollar per year lease. It all was a huge issue, and the trouble that blood quantum creates within family. And so that's where it all started. From there, I had her family, and then came the plot. And I'm kinetic, okay, so I was a Broadway dancer, I was a martial artist. I go for hikes and I dictate, and I come home and I write, an idea of what this story might be. I go hike more. I come back, I write more, I go back, hike more, I come back. And then pretty soon I have kind of a layout, right? And then I take all of that and I copy paste little sections into, this is a big process, into, into the, into my Scrivener, where it has a binder full of all these different chapters. And so each chapter has a little couple sentences or, where I think, and then I just fill it in with like empty chapter spaces that I think it's going to take. And that's what I
Almost like a
have.
beat sheet, right?
It's
For
crazy.
screenwriters, like a beat sheet for the screenwriters.
Yeah, I started writing with screenplays, so I
Yeah.
think a lot of what I do kind of comes from that. So yeah,
It's interesting because any of the screenwriters I interview, that's how they write, right?
Hmm.
They need to have a beat sheet. They need to follow along. They don't sit down and just write. And the authors are all over the place, like the novelists, right? But most of them, even though they have a rough idea, write easier just sitting at the computer and writing. That is a pretty common thing. Although some of them do exactly what you say. I need to flesh it out more and then fill in the blanks. And then sometimes I have surprises.
Yeah, yeah. Because when I sit down to write, right off the bat, like some authors, their first draft is really messy, really fast. Like you said, they just want to see where it's going. Find out where it's going. Just get to the end. With me, I start writing. Every sentence counts right from the
Mm.
start. I'm already, and it all has a musical cadence, because of my background, and I'm reading aloud, I'm talking aloud. Um, I think that's what made narrating the audiobook for this so much easier. I was so used to speaking all the words, and you know how much slower you are when you're actually speaking the
Yeah.
words.
Well, this is a labor of love for certain then.
Indeed.
All right. So, is there going to be a sequel or do you know?
Ah, there is. The next book is called Hawaii Rage, and it's set to come out May 19th.
Wow.
I know.
Get her,
And
do we get her family back in it or
we do. We do. It takes Makalani to the big island of Hawaii to a Paniolo, a Hawaiian cowboy ranch. That was something I really want. Again, here we go. I knew a topic. I wanted to explore the Paniolo culture. Therefore, it had to be on the island of Hawaii. And I started with that. And I went to research and I built out a family lineage for this fictional Paniolo family that traced all the way back to the first vaqueros that came over from California. That was back then, Mexico. And you know why I do this? When I have a lineage that traces back through history, it gives me an organic purpose and opportunity to share the Hawaiian culture and to share Hawaiian history that was connected with those people along the way.
and a better feel for the characters, right? I
Oh,
mean,
that too.
yeah.
Indeed, indeed.
I mean, because it's not that easy to be consistent, which is a problem I've seen many authors struggle with, right? Because you create a character and then you don't consistently hold true to the characteristics or the traits you start off giving them,
Mm.
right? Like, and in
Mm.
the middle, sometimes they do things that really appear more out of character for the person you created.
Yeah, yeah, more contrived for the plot.
Right.
Yeah, I see that in movies too. I'm
I
like,
so do
okay,
I.
so the writer needed you to do this. So now our hero is gonna, yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think I'm exceedingly character driven,
And I
and
think that
yeah.
putting that kind of a background together probably gives you that opportunity.
Yes, it does. I know them very well, and even if they don't have a lot of page time, so they'll come in and there's this luau and there's all of these family coming in for Kauai Storm. And even if they only have a paragraph, I know them. I know their history. I know how they relate in this family.
Which makes it read, honestly, it's very my big fat Greek wedding, right? I mean, I mean,
Yeah.
this is just a family who's, the you would kind of assimilate the history as you're going along and the dynamics, uh, and it seems very natural.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad. I like that. My big fat Greek wedding, Hawaiian style.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So, I mean, tell readers where they can learn more about you.
Absolutely. Easy place, my website, torieldridge.com.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and I have a whole readers section that has like fun stuff for book clubs and everything. A lot of videos and videos of me in the studio narrating Kauai Storm, which if anybody out there really loves audiobooks, listening to audiobooks, I highly recommend that. I was so honored that they allowed me to audition to narrate my own book. But I think they gave me that opportunity because, well, there's native Hawaiian language and pidgin, and it would have been a tall order for a narrator, and it was one of the most amazing experiences. So you can find cool videos on the readers page of my website, torieldridge.com. I love Instagram. I'm very visual. And my Instagram is writer.tori. And then you can find me, on all the other places, TikTok and Facebook and, whatever else. And usually that's Tori Eldridge author or just Tori Eldridge.
Well, I'll put up a link to the webpage. I
Oh,
encourage
fun.
everybody to check it out. It's a great, enjoyable read, and I hope Tori you'll come back and keep talking to me as you keep writing.
Oh, that would really be lovely. I would love that. Thank you so much.
So I'm going to close the podcast. Say, have a great day, everybody.